Hey everyone, this is Tim Melvin of the Tim Melvin Deep Value Report and Banking on Profits newsletter, coming to you from down here in Central Florida, where once again it's warming up. We're getting back towards those 90-degree marks. I know a lot of people think that that doesn't sound great. I love it when it gets nice and warm like that. So really starting to enjoy it. We're going to be back into the 90s for the first time this year at the end of this week, and I'm actually pretty excited about it. I'm gonna have to start wearing a hat. I went to the barbers today, and usually I'm terrible about getting haircuts. I always forget to get them. I get too shaggy. So I went in. I said instead of just throwing the number one on the sides and real short on top, I said, yeah, let's just try number one all the way around. And that's the shortest setting on the little clipper thing that they use. Well, much like shareholders of Enron and WorldCom found out that there wasn't much there, all the fluff was removed. I found out there wasn't much there once all the fluff was removed. So we'll have to let this grow back in a bit and wear a little Orioles cap to keep myself from getting. I had sunburn going on. It was quite a surprise at the old barber shop today. Anyway, we'll see what the wife thinks of it when she gets home. Anyway, this past weekend we took the youngest. She's 13, along with her friend, to one of these YouTube convention things here in Orlando, and they wanted to go see these two British guys, Dan and Phil. My name for them runs with Dip Crit and Dumbbrass, but it's just two British guys. They go on stage, they talk on these YouTube videos. The kids click on the ads, and I guess they spend money. These guys are making $1 million a year. There's another one called PewDiePie. Near as I can tell, this guy just does videos talking filth and garbage, and he's making millions. I think I read $7 million in 2015 alone, just from these stupid, ridiculous videos that our kids are watching. Sometimes I think technology has gone too far. You see the kids walking along, and this is a calculator, but you get the idea. And this is how they're walking along as they leave school when I'm picking up every day. So I told my wife that I'm actually going to become the next internet sensation. I'm going to get myself a bottle of whiskey, a glass of ice. I'm going to sit down. It's going to be called the Old Grouch Channel. And I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to drink some whiskey and I'm going to complain about politics and go on rants and talk about books and baseball. And we're going to throw that site up there, and we'll put some whiskey ads and some detective novel ads, perhaps, maybe fiber supplements and vitamins for the 55 and older crowd, which I will be joining next Wednesday. I'm officially 55 years old. I guess that makes me qualified. If I could figure out how to get rid of all these kids to go live in a 55 and up community and just play golf all the time. Don't really see that in my future anytime soon. But look for the Old Grouch Channel. We may do it just for fun. Anyway, earnings season's coming on. The only thing we've been paying attention to a couple things. One, I do track private equity firm earnings and conference calls very closely. Lots of valuable information on these calls. So far, we've only had two. We'll be watching the rest. What strikes me is the dry powder levels are still building because there's not a lot of places for them to put the money. There's not a lot of attractive valuation and entry points, but there is a lot of money looking for a home outside of traditional financial markets where there's still a lot of skepticism. Now, we're also, of course, tracking community bank earnings, and what we've seen so far, they're starting to flood in now. The next 2 weeks are really just a big wave of community bank earnings, so we're really busy staying on top of those. But so far, solid loan growth, outstanding credit conditions across most of the smaller banks that we follow and like. Still real excited about that segment of the market. It's pretty much the only segment, along with some selected REITs, that I'm all that excited about at current levels. It's just not an attractively priced market. It's been the case for some time now. Going to need a major event to change that. Now, according to the Henry McVeigh, who writes on the KKR blog, he's one of their chief macro guys, we could see that in 2016. He wrote on the blog a few weeks ago. His post back in January I covered and talked about. It was called Adult Swim Only 2016, saying that only sophisticated, experienced markets investors should be in these markets because there's just a lot that can go wrong this year. Hasn't really changed. He says that the microeconomic cross currents strike him more as a random puzzle of complexity than anything approaching an efficient market. He says there's a notable decline in nominal GDP growth across the globe, but particularly in some key emerging markets. And he thinks that the risks for the market are increasingly to the downside in the rest of 2016. And this is not the time to be broadly jumping into the investment waters. I tend to agree with him, not because I'm any kind of macroeconomic genius or I'm just, super at predicting markets. If you've known me any amount of time, you know that that is in fact absolutely not true. I couldn't find the short-term direction of most markets with a map. So if there was such a map, which I'm increasingly inclined to believe there is not, terrible at predicting markets, but we're still not finding a lot to buy outside of the community banks and the handful of REITs that we've talked about and that we own in the newsletter portfolios. Not a lot of stuff that really gets me excited to go out and put new money to work. Just not a lot of safe and cheap, deep value opportunities outside the community bank space. We do still love the community bank space, have about 30 on our buy list that trade at substantial discounts to book value, have activist involvement, strong loan portfolios, and excellent balance sheets. We're excited about those. We're happy to own them. Valuations are nowhere near a peak level in the community bank sector, so we're still really comfortable there. In the broader market, we're really going to need to see some sort of inventory creation event before we can just get all worked up and excited. Interesting, there's a Richard Rainwater quote rolling around the internet this week. Somebody sent it to me on Facebook, I think, is one of those little meme jobs. I didn't even know they were called memes until my stepdaughter pointed that out to me. But he said, most people invest their money and then sit around worrying about when the next blow up is going to be. Well, I prefer to wait for the next blow up and then invest my money. Now, that's the Womakian, Andy Beal, Hetty Green approach to investment, and it's the right one to use. We're really comfortable holding large amounts of cash in the international portfolio, in the deep value portfolio, and even in the income portfolio. Pretty close to fully invested in the community bank portion of the portfolio and expect to stay that way for a while. Everywhere else, we have lots of cash. I think valuations are too high. Can't find enough opportunities to get involved in. We'll just sit back and wait for something to happen that creates a favorable environment for us. Now, just saw something really interesting on the TV, and really it's almost scary. They were asking a market strategist, what's more important for the direction of the stock market? Earnings or central banks? Now, I want you to keep in mind the stock market's made up of actual operating companies that they make and sell stuff and they sell services. And the whole idea is to have an ownership interest in the business and benefit from the profits that they generate and reinvest to grow the business. That's sort of the textbook way this stuff is supposed to work. The answer unequivocally was central banks are far more important. Earnings don't matter that much. Just matters how much money is forced into the stock market by low interest rates, leaving no alternative for investors in search of return except equities. That just strikes me as a horrendously dangerous statement and a very poor environment under which to be investing our money. So anyway, next week we should start seeing some 13Fs. We've got some creeping in this week, but so far nothing of importance that I feel like we need to comment on or keep track of. Just a bunch of smaller firms and some bank trust departments have filed so far. We'll start seeing a little bit more start to creep in next week as the early filers will start to get in. And guys, play the game. I want to just stay off the radar screen. I don't want my holdings discussed in detail. So sometimes they file early, sometimes they file late. We'll see who does what. Con Brothers is usually among the first and also one of the more interesting filings. So hopefully they'll file next week and we'll be able to talk about that a little bit. New John Sanford book out today, part of the Lucas Davenport Price series. That's one of the best all-time series of books. Love the way he writes. His character development, plot development is excellent. If you've never read them and you're a fan of recreational reading detective novels the way I am, do plenty of professional reading, but at the end of the day, click that ball game on, pick up that book. I'm a pretty happy camper. And speaking of ball games, the Orioles are still in first place, but we're going to have to pick it up here. We're 4-6 in our last 10 games. That's not going to keep you in first place very long. We're fifth in home runs, fifth in batting average. Offense is absolutely getting the job done. However, our starting pitching staff has an ERA of about 4.2. And in the American League, especially the American League East, that's not going to get it done. Starting pitching is going to have to really step up, or we're going to have another also-ran season, and that's going to make me sad. Now, Washington, if you're a Washington Nationals fan, Bryce Harper gearing up for another MVP season. Chicago Cubs look excellent. Always been a little bit of a Cubs fan, even more so now that my son-in-law lives in Chicago, close to the stadium, and has tickets, so we can get up to a few games. So we'll be watching developments over in the National League. I think both the Cubs and the Nationals are going to have an outstanding season, and will be a lot of fun to watch. In today's connected world, we can watch it on MLB TV, so we can catch the Cubs games, the Nationals games, as well as the Orioles games. They're at Tampa tonight, so that's actually going to be on local TV for a change. I'm looking forward to it. So, not much really going on in the markets. Flattish weeks, still within 1% of all-time highs. Not a lot to buy outside of the community bank space. No inventory being created anywhere that catches our attention. So, really looking forward tomorrow. We've got, of course, what the monthly Fed nap. I've made it a practice taking a nap when the Fed releases that report, because I just don't want to get caught up in all the hoopla. I'll read it when I get back into the office about 3 o'clock, and all the discussion and dissection of the punctuation of the particular report have been completed, and have a look to see what it actually says. And always, by the way, anytime I read the jobs report, the Fed news release, whatever it is, if you actually read the report, there's always discrepancies between what the headline said and what the report actually says. So we'll see how it all plays out the rest of this week. I'll be back next week. We're going to continue playing with the video stuff, seeing new ways to make this more interesting, more entertaining. I thought last week's bank presentation was actually pretty good. I would love to hear your feedback on that. But we'll keep trying to make these more interesting and informative. And in the process, we're going to try to grow a little hair back over the next week. Anyway, this is Tim Melvin down here in Central Florida. I'll be trying to avoid some serious head sunburn. I have my baseball caps out, and we will see you next week, hopefully with no sunburn.